Hello, hello. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Hi, how's everyone doing? I'm so excited to share with you some of my tips and techniques on how I paint my trees. I had to warm up with a tree version of some different colors, so I'll share with that in just a second. I'm going to wait for some people to show up before I start. If you're curious, I will start talking about just the little things that I do when it comes to setup. I have a waterproof board. Really, it replaced the gator boards. I know a lot of older, I should say seasoned watercolorists. They use gator board, but I have found that the yard signs that you get from wherever, you can get them at the printers, and they're waterproof. So I've used this one for probably 3 years now, and it really works well. I can put pigment on and lift and use it like a palette almost. So I like this. And again, you just go to the printer's office and ask for, I call them yard sign boards, but they have a special name for it, but that's what I call it. Anyways, so I like that. It helps keep my station all clean, and I can also use binder clips. I just use binder clips if I need to. And anyways, that's one of my workflow secrets. um, yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. If you can hear me, I'd love to um, know for sure that you can hear me. Thumbs up or a smiley face or anything would be very appreciative. And I see a couple people joining. I'm waiting for a little bit more. I can see, yeah. Hello. Can you guys hear me all right? Maybe. I'll wait another couple minutes. Hey, Shar. Can you hear me all right? I'm so glad to see you. You make my heart happy. Hello. Yes, all right, good. I'm glad you guys can hear me. All right. Well, it is almost 2 o'clock, so I um I will wait a little bit longer. I'm excited for this tree demo. This is the way I paint trees. I hope everyone paints their trees differently because they're so different. There's just lots of different ways to paint trees. So um, I'm excited to share my way of painting a tree, which is not the right way or the wrong way. It's just my way. So yeah. Awesome. Hello, Annie. Hello, Debbie. It's great to see you guys. Jan, I'm always happy to see you here. And Jan does a phenomenal job with our Brusho Fun group. I just love how much attention to detail she puts in and all the little things that she does for the group. So give her a big, like, I don't know, applause or something, because Jan is the brains behind this whole group, and I think you're awesome. And before I get started, I will just mention that I think we still would love to have artists or hobbyists that love Brusho be part of the Brusho Fun team. And it's really not like a team, but it's a fun way to share your talents and to share your creativity through Brusho, and then just to get new ideas going. And we don't know what you want unless we hear from you guys. So it's nice to have a little bit more people part of the group to really share that creativity. Anyways, Jan, if there's something else that I'm not making sense, feel free to type it in. But the the group is really fun. The team is just kind of, if you want to be on it, it's super like casual. We're just asking for, like, maybe if you had ideas and you wanted to share those ideas, to take more of an initiative to do that. But it's been fun. So anyways, I'm going to get started and stop talking, or stop rambling on. So we're on trees. And here is the demo that I painted a week ago or so. And you can kind of see, hopefully you can kind of see the gold that is in it. Yeah. And it's just a fun, loose, expressive tree. Now I would definitely put this tree in a bigger landscape if I wanted. But I think it's definitely, I would call this a statement tree for sure. So I have been studying trees for about 2 years now. I started drawing trees, and I don't know what it is about trees that I love. I just think there's never, you can't find one, each tree is so unique. And so what I've came down, I sketch trees all the time, like almost daily. I sketch a little doodle of a tree. So I have 4 different shapes. These two are, I would consider triangles, although this is I would call this more of like a, I don't know, pyramid triangle, where you have them stacked up. And you could paint 2 circles at the bottom and then a circle at the top, and melt, like blend them together, and then add values to make the tree pop. This is another triangle tree. Like, I like to consider, just like with florals, there's different shapes to florals and trees, and I have came that these are like triangles. This is an oval, and this one, the demo that I did, is very much an oval. You can see that it's just a big oval with a stick. And so I like to think with brushos, it's so, you're representing a tree, right? You're not trying to paint it realistically. So giving the shape, having your viewer know that there's a shape, they'll say, oh, that's a tree. Oh, what a pretty tree, or whatever you're trying to go for. So oval, I have seen lots of trees that are literally a circle. And I always, if you haven't checked out, there's a great artist, Grant Wood. He painted the American Gothic. But before he painted that, he did a ton of landscapes, and most of his trees are circles. And the way he used value and composition to make his trees look stylized, it's really cool to look at. So check out Grant Wood. Stone City is a great one to look at. But anyways, lots of circle trees, and I really have found a lot of fun painting circle trees. And then there's this beautiful tree that I see almost every day on my walk, and it is a square tree. Like, I should have taken a picture and shared it with you, but it literally, especially in the wintertime with just the branches, it's a square tree, and no one's cut it, no one's done anything to it, but just the way nature works, it is a square tree, and it's not oval and it's not circles. So, when you draw loosely, you can really just get the shape down, and then worry about the color and the texture. And that's what I do. Like the 5 different elements of design, I worry about the color, the texture, and the shape. 3 out of 5 of the design elements. And I figure 3 out of the 5, I'm good. You guys will know that it's a tree, and I can enjoy the process while painting and not feel so restricted. So anyways, I just wanted to give you a background on how I paint the tree, so when I'm painting, you're not lost. And if you have any questions, ask them. But definitely check out Grant Wood Stone City for his trees. I'm trying to think. There's some other ones. He's done some impressionistic paintings too. I know I'm from Iowa, so of course Grant Wood is like near and dear to my heart. So if you're ever in Iowa, check out the Art Center. The Des Moines Art Center has a couple good Grant Wood tree paintings. But then also Cedar Rapids has a like a museum of all these Grant Wood paintings, and he painted a lot of trees, and so a lot of my inspiration comes from Grant Wood, even though I paint them in my complete different ways. So anyways, there you go. Let's get painting. If you are feeling like I've never painted a tree and I would like to learn, now's your chance. I'm going to, first I want to just wet my paper, and I'm going to add, there's a bunch of different ways to add a background. This is one of my ways, and I'm not saying it's the right way. It's probably not the right way, but it's my way, and that's what I like. So I just wetted my paper, and now it's just a little bit damp. And what I could do, just as I don't want it to buckle, I'm going to go ahead and, I don't normally like to tape my paper down. I find it very restricting, and I don't know if anyone else has that problem, but I do, and I don't want to, like, I want to be able to move my paper if I feel like it. So anyways, very gently, I'm going to make, in my mind, I'm making a oval shape, and I'm not trying to go into that oval shape, because what I want to do is I want to leave that for the greens, and I just did, which I figured I would, but that's okay, because I made it really wet, and this is just the sky. And if you have like a fear of the blank page, this is a great way to start, because now your page isn't blank. And I always like to do a little bit top heavy on the color. Yeah, I'm using, this is about a 5x7 piece of paper, 140 pound watercolor paper. Nothing too much different. And the blue is going to dry a lot lighter, so I'm not really worried that this blue is in with the tree. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. So, and this will dry in about, hopefully about 5 minutes. And while I do that, I'm going to share with you, I promise to go through the whole demo, but what I did with this one is, first off, I used emerald green and sea green. And then for the trunk, I used dark brown and ultramarine blue, which are that's my go-to favorite color combination for a rich brown. What I'm going to do now, so what I did was I just painted an oval, but I didn't want it to be a complete oval, so I added brush strokes here, little brush strokes, like almost like I was dancing on the paper, and then just let the Brusho do its thing. Now what I want to do is I want to go back in, and I want to add some of that texture that you see, so these lines, and I'm going to do that. Sometimes I might use my finger, and sometimes I might use my paintbrush. I'm going to start with my paintbrush, and since this is more of an oval shape, I'm going to use my brush, and I'm going to kind of curve around. I've studied enough trees to know how the branches curve out and then back in like an oval. And when I do wet the paper, it's going to activate that Brusho, which is what I want. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this olive green. Actually, for this one, I'm going to use, yeah, I'll use olive green. Either a darker green. So I start with the lightest and then I go darker. And I'm just going to do that now with I'm going to get my finger wet. And yes, I am finger painting, but that's part of the fun. That gives it the texture that I'm looking for. I can do that with my brush, but my finger is so much funner. Sorry, it's funner. Using my finger just, I don't know, makes me happy. So, and it gives me a different texture. And again, I'm going for a representational look. And I'm being very strategic as to where I put my finger. And maybe this is like not your style. That's okay. Like I said, we all have our different ways of doing things, but I like it because I can get the right, I don't have to mess with my brush. If I know I need it to be wetter, I can. It's very intuitive. Okay, so now that I have this, I can I like to take a step back, and I see that right here is missing something. I'm going to add a little bit of water. I'm going to add a little bit more olive green, get my finger wet again. And sometimes I have to tell myself that less is more. Okay, I like that. I think that's gonna work. I'm gonna dab this up just a tiny bit. My paper towel or my washcloth or rag, whatever you call this, is my best friend. I really like this. I like how this is kind of misty and this is just kind of very loose. I'm going to turn down the brightness a little bit so you can kind of see a little bit better. I think that you can see the darker values a bit. Okay, now this is pretty, like where I put the water, I can now add my gold. And guess what? I'm doing the same thing. I'm finger painting again. I'm smudging it with my finger. That way the gold just kind of like gets into the paper and I'm not losing any of the really pretty gold. And I'm not adding a lot. You're probably not going to be able to see it in the demo. There's that. Yeah, you can see where the shimmer is right there. And then I would let this dry, and if I needed, for this one I added some browns because I didn't want the tree trunk to just look, but I let it dry completely. I wanted the tree trunk to look natural, which it's not quite there yet, but it will when I add the darker pigment. And then I added some brown strokes here and just wherever I felt like it needed it. And then that's how that's done. But I'm going to let that dry. This is now pretty dry. It's not bone dry, but it's dry enough for me to use. And I like this texture, so let's get started. I'm going to paint. I'm going to water doodle. That's a word, right? That's a technique. That's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it water doodle. Maybe there's a better name for it, but that's what I'm calling it. I'm not doodling with ink, I'm doodling with water. And that way, if I don't like it, I can just wipe it up. All right, so I'm going for an oval, and in my mind, I have a beautiful tree that is by my house that I am painting. And I'm capturing the essence of it. I'm not capturing the actual tree itself. I'm capturing the essence of it. And I know that sounds probably a bit more spiritual or a little bit more artistic, but the fact of the matter is it's been like engraved in my mind, so I know exactly what I want it to look like. And that's the essence of the tree. I can't remember all the details, but I can remember most of what the tree looks like. Okay, I start with my lightest value, and for this time, I'm going to use New Gamboge. And I know that New Gamboge and Ultramarine, for me, makes my heart happy. So that's why I chose Ultramarine on the background. Now, I can move my paper around a little bit. I can still see where I water doodled, right? And I'm just, eventually, these brush strokes are probably going to merge into each other, but I don't want it to start at this moment. If you are curious about my style of painting, I will tell you, I love the book. There's two books that I love. The Spirit of the Brush is a good one. And then the Tale of Watercolor by Jean Carbonetti. And Jean Carbonetti, I think she might still be producing work, but I'm betting she's more in acrylics at this point. I know she likes acrylics, but she's quite an inspiration to lots of intuitive painting watercolorists. So anyways, I am going to keep these, and I know it looks like a hot mess right now. I promise it will not look like that soon. Now, while it's still wet, and I've made this lighter because the sun is coming from here, so I want this to be darker. So I always think about where my light source is coming from. I don't have to study the light necessarily, but to know where your light source is coming from is going to make your picture look a little bit more believable. Alright, now I'm going to start with leaf green, and I really like leaf green with New Gamboge. The New Gamboge gives a nice warm look to it, and then the leaf green has this beautiful yellow, I don't know, it's just a really fun color to work with. Now I'm going to let it just sit for a second so I can see, and I will spray a little bit because I want to see where my Brusho went, like I said. And when I say a little bit, like I lightly tap it so the water's not just bleeding. It does take some practice. But I promise you, if you paint a tree every day, you're going to get really good at it. Alright. I'm not too worried that there's yellow stuff right here. It's part of the nature. I'm not loving that puddle, so I'm going to... Now I can paint with the Brusho crystals that's already on the paper. I'm wanting it to mix. Now I decided to make my tree even bigger. Why not? It's my tree. I can do what I want. And I'm in my mind. I love painting because I like to. It's really a mind exercise workout. In my mind, I am always thinking about my next couple of brush strokes, and I know that I want my tree to grow up, so I am, in essence, growing my branches while I paint. I hope that makes sense. If that does not make sense, the spirit of the brush will help you if you're looking to be a loose painter like this, but have those beautiful brush strokes. Okay, I'm going to walk away from that for now. There's not much I can do other than just adding a little bit more texture, which is exactly what I want to do. Because it's wet, it's just perfect to add more of that leaf green that I kind of messed up. And now that's going to just become this beautiful work of art on its own. You can kind of, yeah, okay. Now let's work on the trunk. I have a start of the trunk, but I'm not quite there yet. So, the yellow is nice to have, but I really want a nice solid trunk, and I think I'll do that just to give it I like my trees to be have some character to it. Okay. Now, this is the fun part, is you get a kind of, you're just starting the trunk, so you don't, it does not have to be perfect, but I do want to be able to, there. Okay. Now, I'm going to add my base. And yeah, there's the brown. I don't have to have the brown. I can use that same green that I used for the tree. But we'll be very fast with it. And because I don't want just a straight line, I'm going to, this is where the play comes in. This is where it's always so much fun. And because I'm waiting for this to dry, I can just play along and really good. And now I can go back and get some more. And I'm using leaf green. That's been the color I've been using the most. I really want the green to I'm just flicking from the bottom up. The bottom's going to give me a thicker brush stroke, and then when I go up, it's going to give me a thinner brush stroke. And so that's all I'm doing. Now you could take a fan brush and just fan it too, but anyways, there's some grass demo. All right, let's go back to the, let's keep working on the trunk. I don't have to spend a lot of time on the trunk. This time I'm going to just add some dark brown. And I'm going to paint the trunk. And I'm tilting my paper down so the brown has somewhere to go. Because I definitely don't necessarily want it to go up at this point. I want to control where the brown is going. That green is gonna give me some trouble. That's okay. It's a very intuitive process. There's, it just takes time. Now I want the I want the trunk to have a lot of texture, so I'm adding that ultramarine that will give that brown just a bit more depth to the brown. That's a good description of what ultramarine does with brown. But I love burnt umber with ultramarine and watercolor. That's one of my favorite combos for winter trees. And I'll just do a study. I'll do studies after study with winter trees with ultramarine and burnt umber. It just gives a really nice look. But I still love the dark brown with the ultramarine for a trunk. Okay, so that's pretty dry. At this point I would let it be, and then I will go back in and add my texture. I think I'm going to add one more layer, so we're on our third layer here. And this time, I know I can't leave well enough alone. That's the hardest part about being loose, is remembering to stop before you get too far. And I felt like I lost a bit of the sea green, and I want to bring that back in. But I don't want it to look, I want it to look natural. So if you remember me doing those waves, I'm trying to add just enough form to my trees like I did with the waves. And sometimes all it takes is just a little bit of extra pigment that's probably already on that I can just add to it. And this tree, I think I might call that done. I will work on the trunk though, and that will make it look just a little bit more solid. Clean up. We'll clean it up a little bit. And I really like this light color right here, and then there's this dark part right here that I'm really loving. So I'm going to blend that. Now I'll add just a little bit of ultramarine to that brown. And that just gives it a little bit more depth. There. Okay, and then I'm going to go in with my olive green again. And anywhere I feel like I just need a little bit more explanation, I'm going to add know if I'm going to be able to see that triangle, but that's okay. I would love to know if anybody has heard of Jean Carbonetti's Teo of watercolor. If you had, I'd love to know if what you thought of it, um, or the Spirit of the Brush. And the the author of Spirit of the Brush. I can never remember her name, but she is fantastic. All right. And really what I'm doing is I'm just, wherever I feel like I need a little bit of form or a little bit of brush strokes to say, hey, this is a tree, this is my tree. That's what I'm doing. So I could spend a couple more minutes on this tree, but I think you get the idea. This is a very loose, beautiful tree. I think it would look beautiful in a landscape. I could definitely see, Van Gogh has a couple of statement tree pictures that I love. The cypress one. I don't know if it's just called cypress or not, but I mean, he studied, I'm sure he painted a bunch of different studies, and then he just smacked it like a background in it, but I mean, it's so much fun to just study trees. Yeah, let's see if I can't work on this a little bit more. Now, there's a little bit more yellow in this than I probably would have thought, but that's okay because I'm still working on it. I had to see where the Brusho was going, and I didn't want to add. Okay, so there's my new gamboge, my second, and then the leaf color on top of it. Now I can go in with my green olive. And if you don't have green olive, try ultramarine. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. And now I'm going to use my finger. And I like working on a bigger piece of paper because it gives me a bit more freedom to move freer. Yeah, and I also know that at the base of my tree is going to be darker than at the top of my tree. So that's why I added a bit more Brusho at the bottom of my tree. And now I'm just, in my mind, again, I have that mental picture of this beautiful tree that's by my house that's in oval shape. And so I'm going with what's in my mind. And plein air would be really fun to do trees with Brusho, but someone mentioned on the group that Brushos and wind do not go together. Agreed. But you could sketch it out and then add the Brusho, and that would be really fun. And I think I've done a lot of pen and ink with trees. It gives it a different look. Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead because the last thing I want to do is to overwork this. So what I do is I mentally say, okay, step 1 is this, step 2 is another thing, step 3 is adding the loose details, and then every time after one step I take a break. I put it out of my sight so I don't have to look at it, because if I start looking at it I'm going to want to do more, and I don't want to do more. I really love how this turned out. I couldn't have planned for this blue brownish color to it just works very nice. Yeah, so, but I do like the grass. I think I can add it. I'm going to add a little bit more depth to it, and instead of adding more texture down to the bottom, I'm just going to add more of that pigment. I'm going to paint now. This time I am going to keep my brush down on the paper. As my art teacher likes to say, you're figure skating with this, meaning you're gliding on the ice. You're not doing anything else. Just keep it on the paper until you need more pigment. And that will add that thick, rich color. All right, now I can go back in and add the little bit of grass that I want. It might seem kind of crazy to add a second layer of grass like we just did this, but I think long-term wise, it's going to be nice to have. I'm going to block that up a bit. Go back in with a darker brush, and then I'm going to, I want that to blend a little bit more. It's so much fun to play with pigments. That's out of hand, so we'll change that up a bit. Okay, I'm walking away from the grass. The grass is good. Jean Carbonetti has also in her watercolor, Teo watercolor book, I swear, like every chapter she says, walk away from your painting when you've done your step, walk away from it, go on to a different step. And I've taken that advice and it has helped immensely. Okay, now I can add my gold, and this tree is done, and I would be able to do something beautiful with it. There, just tapping a little bit of gold, sprinkle it. Definitely recommend getting it if you don't have it. If you do have it, use it. Use it up. It's so worth it. Okay. Now I will say, if you're using less than 140 pound paper, you're probably going to, and you're using your finger to blend, the paper might pill. So I definitely recommend 140 pound watercolor paper. No matter what you're painting, I think 140 pound is definitely the watercolor paper choice. Yeah, and then all I did was I added my little brush strokes here so people knew that, oh, that's an expressive tree. And I didn't want to add all the brush strokes. I really like this part right here. In my opinion, it makes the tree look like it's in the breeze. So you're not adding all the details, you're just adding what you want to add. And that is all I did. So, and I can take that olive green, or if you don't have olive green, you can mix your New Gamboge with ultramarine and just get a darker pigment with that. But now I'm just gonna add my leaves. And however you like to paint leaves is how I paint my leaves. There's not a, like, you could go in and just dab your little leaves if that's how you paint your leaves. I have this, I don't mind that. To me, the point is just getting the essence of the tree. So I don't need to paint the actual leaves. I just need the line work. And like I said, this is the time this is the part that you should take your time. And I really love this dark right here moving this way, and this dark right here, so I'm going to leave that alone, but just kind of add to it with the Brusho. Again, I'm just making always, and again, I'm growing the tree, right? I'm not starting here and going down. I like to grow with the tree. Especially if there's like one branch that just calls to me, I will take that all the way to the edge. Just like that. I'm going to need a little bit more of my pigment. This is more of a dry brush at this point, and I'm just adding a little bit of details. Again, I I want to keep the texture, I want to keep the details, but I also want to be able to just enjoy the tree aspect of it. And I think a couple more darks right in here will do it. Yep, I'm good. I think that's great. I really like this tree. It turned out beautiful. I love the texture. I love the color. I love the layering. Yeah. You guys have any questions for me? Maybe? It's so much fun to paint. I definitely love to study trees and to share my style. So this is the book that I was referencing, The Tale of Watercolor, and I think the copyright the copyright is pretty old, 1998, so a little over 20 years. But I'll share, like, there's a very loose winter painting of pine trees. She talks about different ways to paint trees very expressively. There's some birch trees, but she also talks about the mindset of watercolor. Here's the start of an atmospheric landscape, and I think you could definitely make the there's a couple of demos where she just says, okay, you start here and then you can get this. So it's a really fun book. I definitely recommend getting it if you have the chance to get it, or to look at it. I think my library had it, and then it was so good that I bought it. But I hope this demo helps you paint a very beautiful summer tree. Yeah. No questions? I love to answer questions if you have them. Was this helpful? Do you think you guys will try a tree? Are trees hard to paint? It took me a couple years. Trees are not always, I think once I understood that I had to get the shape right, that is what sold it for me, is once I understood that, okay, trees, obviously trees have shape, but what kind of shape, that's when that just took off for me. And then I also like to, in the wintertime, just study this, like the skeleton of the tree, so like just the bare branches, and that's really fun. All right, well, if you guys don't have any questions, I'm going to take off and see how my kiddos are doing, because I told them to be good and let me do my demo. So I should go check on them. But I'm grateful for your for watching, and I'm grateful for all the many comments from the beach scene. That was just wonderful. I really appreciated seeing all that work. That just made my whole week. So thank you for that. Anyways, happy painting practice, sketch. I love having my sketchbook to just sketch trees, and then when I'm sketching those trees, that just goes into my Brusho work. So anyways, okay, enjoy, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.